In this episode, did I accidentally become Buddha? Hi everyone, I'm back online again after not being on YouTube for a little while. Lately, I've been sorting out some things in the 3D world, getting on top of things in life and just getting stuff done. But I'm back again. Last year, there's the place that I work in the city where I live, not far from where I work, out of nowhere one day they started building a Buddhist center. So this Buddhist meditation center, it just sort of, I wouldn't say it popped out of nowhere, but they constructed it pretty quickly. And it surprised me a little bit because I'd never really expected to see something like that in a city area. Anyway, long story short, I'd been walking past there a few times last year, and it sort of occurred to me that in life maybe I am sometimes a bit stressed, a bit overwhelmed, and they were offering free meditation classes during lunch breaks. And I thought that's a great idea. I could just go there during my lunch break for 15 minutes, free meditation class, and it's close to where I work. I'd never ended up going there, but this week I came across some event signage, and they were promoting an event that was on tonight, and it was titled Happiness, Confidence and the Power of the Mind. So I don't really consider myself as Buddhist or following any particular religion. But I do like some of the ideas that Buddhism presents, just as I like some of the ideas Christianity presents, etc. So I don't really follow the rules or laws or commandments as such of different religions, but I do like taking in bits and pieces from all different sources. And this particular event, the way it was marketed, they say, in recent years, we have witnessed remarkable material and technological development, but there's not been a corresponding increase in human happiness. This is because happiness and suffering are states of mind, and so their main causes are not to be found outside the mind. Therefore, if we really want to be a truly confident and happy person, now is the time to harness the power of our mind. And they had a few events going on, but I ended up signing up to this particular event, and there was a few times where I thought I wasn't going to get there because I was feeling, earlier this week I was feeling a bit off colour, not quite feeling myself, but I ended up going, and I sort of expected there to be, maybe 20 people showing up, or maybe 10, or maybe there'd just be like 3 of us or something, and there'd be like a small one-on-one class. I got there tonight. I felt pretty relaxed when I was walking in. I didn't know what to expect, so it was like this weird, unfamiliar place, and it was like who knows what's going to happen inside there, but I felt relaxed. And I went in there, and there was like more than 100 people. There were so many people in there. It was just almost all the seats were full. And most people were there before me. I got there like 5 minutes before it started. I got one of the last seats. And then the main guy, the presenter, who's been traveling all around the world, he came out and he started talking to the audience, saying all these different things. And he started talking about happiness, mainly. And then he went into the power of the mind. And then he talked about confidence. I really liked the way that he did his presentation. He wasn't too full on. He wasn't saying, you must do this, you must do that. He wasn't really telling people what to do. And he just suggested different topics and different ways of thinking about ourselves and approaching ourselves, how we think about our mind, and how we approach other people and think about their happiness as well as animals and others. And Okay, so I'm not going to go through and cover all the things he talked about because he spoke a lot for quite a long time. There was quite a lot of repetition, so it was really easy to follow um, the things he was saying. But basically, yeah, he was suggesting things like what is our, asking ourselves, what is our mind? Where is our mind located? What is the function of our mind? And those sorts of things. And then he used that to relate it to happiness. And he said things like, there are two types of happiness, and people only really know about one type of happiness. Um, people people often search for happiness. Well, people are always searching for happiness, but people are searching for happiness usually they don't know where to look. So they look in material things, possessions, you know, having the best car, having a great job, having a good relationship, um, looking in external places and thinking, okay, if I have that thing, that'll make me happy, and then I'll be happy, and that's what people are always looking for. But he said that's a little bit of a mistake because that type of happiness is not guaranteed. You know, you could get the best car, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee you'll be happy. Or you could get that relationship with that person that you really wanted to be with, but um, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be happy in that relationship, etc. And he also said that the happiness is not um, something that lasts for a long time. It's just a short-lived happiness, and then you go off and then you get pulled down by all the other things that happen in life. So that was interesting, and I sort of agreed with him on that topic. And then he also mentioned that there's another type of happiness, which is something that's a little bit harder to put into words. It sort of comes from the heart, and it kind of happens when I won't use his words, I'll just use my own words to describe it because I've experienced it myself, I guess, a little bit. It's sort of when there's, uh, you can be happy without any real need, without any real reason to be happy. You can just say, I'm going to I'm going to be happy in this moment, and you can have that happiness that comes from your heart. And that's like a more of an eternal happiness that lasts. And he provided different methods and techniques, and sort of introduced us to the real sort of basics of Buddhism and different topics. He gave us ideas about how to, you know, um, make us um, experience that type of happiness in our own lives. Um, and he said all sorts of other things as well. Again, I'm not going to restate all the things he said. Some of them I've forgotten now, but they'll come back to me later. But basically, I pretty much agreed with him on everything except for one thing. And that one thing that he said was that, and he said it's not necessarily his words. Like a sort of a core fundamental thing of Buddhism. It's that, um, uh, you know, to be happy, you have to sort of like have a clear mind, and to have a clear mind, the only way to achieve that is through Buddhist teachings. So the only way to achieve a clear mind is through Buddhist teachings. There's no other way to do it. And I just disagreed on that one particular point, but everything else I pretty much agreed with everything he said. And just being through this kind of journey that I've been on over the last year or so, I've come to sort of rapidly realize and remember, I guess you could say, realize a lot of these spiritual lessons, and I've sort of rapidly evolved my way of thinking. Even how I was a few months ago compared to now is different. I'm changing all the time. But just that one point where he said, you can't find a clear, balanced mind without following the teachings of Buddhism. Um, I think for maybe 99% of people, that's true. But it sort of just hit me at that moment. It's like all of these things he's been saying, it's like I already know that. I know exactly what you're saying, and I like he's stating things in different ways, and like maybe giving me different ideas about thinking about things in a different way that I hadn't maybe thought about before. But when it comes to like the non-spoken like idea of what he's going on about, all these ideas, like I know those things already, and I've come to that gnosis. I've come to that understanding or knowing through this spiritual progression, through this progression that I've been experiencing over the last year in particular, but over the last few years, and he kind of gave me that idea that he sort of put ideas into my mind of what this Buddha character is or was, what that Buddha character understood and knew, and I felt like that's me. Like I know that. I'm like I became the Buddha. I experienced a clear mind, and I found my own ways of having a clear mind, and I came to all these realizations myself. And then when I went to this Buddhist center tonight, and I went to this event, he was basically confirming and restating all these ideas that had run through me. Not all the ideas, but he restated some of the feelings and knowing that I had come to know. Yeah. So that's the title that's the reason for my funny title on this video. It's like I can't say I'm anyone special, but I feel like I came to this same point, and I can agree with pretty much everything he said without actually having followed necessarily the teachings of Buddhism. You could argue perhaps that I was perhaps following inadvertently, without necessarily knowing it, coming to the same sort of realizations as what some of these Buddhist people had realized. But yeah, I hadn't actually read into it at all, or I only knew very sketchy, basic details. Probably the closest I've ever got to Buddhism was when I was in Hong Kong a few years ago, and I went up this mountain, the one pictured in this video, and climbed the stairs, went to the top, saw the big Buddha, which is either the largest in the world or one of the largest. It's huge. Went down. It was super hot that day, like super hot. But I was still stressed, even though I was on holiday. I wasn't working, but I was just like that sort of like work running through my mind in the background, even though I didn't need to work. I still had like stresses of what's going on behind the scenes back at home. After we'd climbed the big Buddha and then gone down, we were walking around, and we went into this room where they had a presentation, not quite a museum, but like a little, when you go into a small museum and they have like a projector or a TV on, and they have like a show that runs every 15 minutes, that sort of thing. They just had a little show that goes for a few minutes, and it was talking about someone who either became a Buddha or something like that, his path. This is very, very basic. It was like made for kids. It was really straightforward, and that was all nice. After that presentation was over, there was a big massive bell inside that room. Big like steel or brass or copper, I don't know, like some big metal bell, and it was as tall as me maybe. So it's pretty tall, and it was just like big and round, like you couldn't wrap your hands around it. It was massive bell. And before we left the room, the person suggested that we, you know, like take a little bit of paper and then make a wish, secret wish, and don't tell anyone. And then you have to like put the paper into like some little slot underneath the bell. I don't know, something like that. And then you had to touch the bell for your wish to come true. Just touch the bell, and then you can leave. So I'm like, oh well, you know, cool. We're on holidays. It's all good. Let's do this. It's all fun. It's only going to take 3 seconds or something. So my wish, just after watching that video, my wish was, you know, for the greater good of humanity. You know, like the unachievable things, like, you know, like peace in the world and not all this war and fighting. And I just want everyone to be happy, and yeah, just happy. You know, I just wanted just something basic like that, but for everyone in the world. I just sort of like envisioned the whole world and like all the people in it as a globe, not flat, but and then, you know, put the little paper in or whatever you had to do, and then I touched the bell. And at this point, like the whole day I'd been stressed, like my whole body was tensed up, my heart was sort of like beating faster than it should really, but the moment I touched that bell, the moment I touched it, I connected with it. It was just, it was not of this world. There was like this zing, like not electricity coming into me, but it was like zing, like I don't know, like a transfer of consciousness is the best way that I could describe it. So there are no words to describe it because it's not something you can feel, see, hear, touch, or anything. You can only experience, even though you don't know what it is. You just know that something happened at that point. And I had that wish, you know, for the good of everyone. And then I touched the bell, and it's almost like it took that wish, and it's like, that's good. That's a great thing. I'm going to give you like this ability to make it come true or something. I don't know. Like it wasn't like a magical bell with superpowers, but it was something like that. Like I felt like, I don't know. At the time, I was just like, whoa, something happened, but I didn't really know what was going on. I was just like, whoa, that was interesting. Like I just feel happy. And then I walked outside, and I was like standing in the sun. I was just like, I'm not going to walk. I'm just going to. I just sort of like stood there for a few seconds before we went too far. We're just standing outside the building, and I was like, oh, I don't feel stressed anymore. Like all my stress is just gone. My whole body is just all of a sudden just like rapidly, second by second by second. I can just feel all the stress just melting away from me, and I just felt so much more relaxed. And I don't know what they did to that bell, if they've, you know, if that's been around for thousands of years and there's been like Buddhist monks praying on that thing for years or something. I don't know. I'm just making up stories, but like it was someone only living in the 3D world will say this is all total nonsense, and I'm just making up stories. But in my mind, like I felt like I had somehow connected to that greater good in some way, and I just felt peaceful at that point. And that was not the start of my journey as such, but that was like I feel in this whole spiritual sort of like evolution that I am perhaps going through. I feel like that was a critical point, because after that months later, you know, going back to work, like a few weeks later, you know, the stress returned and all of that, and work was work and life was life. But months later, when it got to Christmas time, I had 2 weeks off of work, and I just did nothing. Like I didn't go out anywhere, or not much. Didn't go away. We had 2 weeks off over Christmas, just for holidays, just for annual leave. And I basically every day I just I would just like sleep for an hour in the afternoon, or maybe I'd sleep for like twice in the day. I'd just like, I'd sleep for 9 hours and then I'd wake up, have breakfast, walk around, go on the computer, watch YouTube, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to lie down for a bit, and then get up, have lunch, and walk around and just like do nothing all day, and then I just like lie down and like sleep in the afternoon for an hour. But at that point, I started to notice, I started to really de-stress, like really, really de-stress, like all of this stress that had been building up for years at work. It was just, I was always at this go, 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 go level, even without necessarily feeling anything. I was always on the move. My mind was always racing. And just with that period of relaxation and rest, I like really wound down. My whole body just recovered. But during that time, I was, I was putting together my own theory of everything, of the universe, and trying to relate quantum physics to classical physics, and coming up with my own theories and ideas. And I've got an idea that I've still got this idea that I built up years ago that Cynthia Sue Larson might be interested in one day. But that was just part of the relaxation. But there was other things going on as well. Like my body was sore and I just needed to rest and recover. And I found that if I could put my hands in a certain place and just kind of like try and visualize where the pain was coming from, try and visualize like the inside of my body, try and visualize, like in this particular case, I was like, well, the pain is coming from the muscles. The muscles are tight because they're all tight, but also like the bones in my spine are like slightly tilted in a couple of different areas, which happens. Like back then I had to go to the chiropractor all the time. But I found that I could just like put my hands over my body and just float them over and just try and like visualize where my hands were seeing, as if my hands had eyes, not eyes to perceive visually, but like I imagine my hands had eyes that could see inside my body. And at one stage I felt like I was actually seeing the bones and the muscles and everything. And I managed to sort of kind of like heal myself a little bit. I kind of like popped things back into position because I could kind of like see where I was getting stuck, and I could feel and intuitively know that if I just move this muscle that way and I move my arm here and then I twist around, that everything will come right. And after like a bit of time of doing this and practicing that every day, I found that I could actually like sort of see inside I felt like I was seeing inside my body a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so I've gone way off topic here, but that's okay. Yeah, I found that I could heal myself in some ways, as well as my spine being all out of alignment and all my muscles being sore and everything, which I managed to recover from just while having that relaxing break and becoming so peaceful and not stressed. I also knew that for some time, like my heart just didn't feel right. And, I should go to the doctor really and get it checked out, but I hadn't been to the doctor or anything. And I just felt that my heart was like not beating right, and all this stress was just going to kill me, like if it continued. And, my heart was literally like suffering in my body. And I wouldn't say it was painful, but like if I continued down that path, I could see that my heart was going to give in way sooner than it should. But yeah, it was at that time that I became more aware of the location of the heart within my body, which for Mandela effects people they'll know what I'm talking about. It was located in a particular place, or I could feel it there. And I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but I almost feel like I healed my heart in some ways. Um, During that time of relaxation and rest and recovery, I really just, all of that stress went away, but also my whole heart just felt so much more relaxed. Everything felt so much better. But, 3 years later or whatever it was, I was coming across the Mandela effects and finding out all these things. One of the things that struck me was people were saying the heart had moved, and it was no longer placed in, off to the side on our bodies, but very close to the middle, almost not exactly in the middle, but very close to the middle. And looking back on it now, I'm sure there are other people who have their claim to fame and may, if you subscribe to the idea that that humans are creating Mandela effects, there may be people who say that they cause the heart to move, but I kind of feel like a little bit from my own perspective, I kind of feel like without even realizing what I was doing, maybe I caused the heart to shift into its new location. And I don't know, that's just a theory, it's just an idea. You could I don't know, anyway. And a lot of people complain about the location of the heart. They're like, oh no, I don't know what's going on, it's all wrong, it's all wrong, it's all wrong. But for me, personally, just with all the physical and sort of mental draining, with my sort of state of being, since then, my heart has just been getting better and better over the years. I just feel all of the problems that I had, just I wouldn't say they've melted away, but 90% of it has just become so much better. So for me personally, the new centered position of the heart is a wonderful thing, and I don't necessarily know that it's something to complain about. Maybe people worry about it, or maybe people think that looks wrong, or I disagree with it. But from my personal perspective, a more centered heart is not just a physical thing. It's kind of symbolic in nature, and represents the fact that perhaps some of us have now come to a world where our heart is more at the middle of what we do and not off to the periphery. Our heart is perhaps not the center of our attention, but it's become a bigger thing for us in our lives. Maybe there's a message behind Mandela effects. Maybe there's a message or symbolism behind the moving of the heart location. Maybe I caused it, maybe I didn't. But I've rambled on for long enough. This has been a really long video. Thank you for listening today, and let me know your thoughts. I'm keen to hear what other people think.